What's up, guys? CT Kidney here, and today I'm going to be bringing you the changes for Season of Discovery. This is going to be the first major balance patch coming in. I'm going to be talking about the priest changes and some of the boss changes coming in that are going to be showing up tomorrow, the 12th of December. And these are big changes. Like, I'm super excited about this because if you've been playing Shadow Priest up until now, you know that it's damn near unplayable in the raid. All of the bosses just have so much shadow resist, it's not playable. Also, our runes just don't do a lot of damage. We have some wonky shit going on, and on top of that, we run out of mana. The Shadow just has a lot of issues right now in the raid that weren't really getting talked about. But right now these runes look like, or these changes look like they might fix them. So first things first, we're gonna get into the priest changes. Number one is that homunculi has been increased by 100%. This is okay. I mean, like, homunculi damage was always pretty decent. I mean, it was like 10% of our damage going into pretty much every fight. So I mean, it's just a flat damage buff. I'm not gonna turn that down. Void Plague has been increased by 200%. I don't think this even needed to be buffed. Honestly, I think Void Plague was fine as is, because it was doing about comparable damage with Shadow Word Pain if you got some spell power. Like right now, my Shadow Word Pain and my Void Plague with I think 31 spell power are doing the same damage, if not Void Plague is eking out a little bit. So this is going to be a massive change for Void Plague. It's going to be trucking. It's going to be doing absolutely massive damage, but it's also going to have to compete on the same slot with Twisted Faith, which has just recently been buffed as well, which did need to be buffed. I do think Twisted Faith needed to be buffed, absolutely. So Twisted Faith, instead of 20% increased damage to enemies with Shadow Word Pain for Mind Blast and Mind Flay, it's going to be 50%. Now, this is huge. Like, Mind Blast is going to do a lot of damage. It's going to do a crazy amount of damage. It's like honestly worth the mana cost now to throw down. As far as Mind Flay goes, 50% increased damage on Mind Flay is like, I think rank 1 Mind Flay does baseline 75, so it's what? That's 34? Not 34. That's 38. About 38 extra damage that Mind Flay is going to do without any shadow power. So the reason this needed to be buffed was because wand specialization with our pre-raid best in slot wand was doing more damage than Mind Flay. And obviously that's a problem because Mind Flay is our filler spell, and it also costs mana. So there was no reason to ever Mind Flay because wand specialization with Cookie's Stirring Wand was just doing more damage. So this is going to make it so that Mind Flay is going to be worth hitting. The only problem is that's going to intensify our mana issues. So mana is going to be a pretty big problem going forward. Unless, you know, the boss changes make it so that the boss fights are way shorter, which honestly I think they will, because this is absolutely massive. So the Shadow Priest changes are really nice. I love to see it. I love to see that Blizzard's actually like listening to the community and like looking at these specs under a microscope and being like, okay, like this shit is just not working. We need to change it. Next up, we're going to look at the boss changes, and these are the biggest change. So the reason that Shadow, or one of the biggest reasons that Shadow was so awful was because half of the bosses in the raid had ridiculous shadow resistance, like absolutely crazy shadow resistance. So we're going to go ahead and look at these real quick. So Galahast has been removed, Galahast's shadow resist has been lowered to 25 from 75. So he lost 50 shadow resist. That's friggin' insane. And also, if you don't know, you can go and get a trinket from the Warsong Outriders or Silverwing Sentinels rep. That's the rep for the Ashenvale PvP event or Warsong Gulch. And you can buy a trinket that gives you 10 spell pen. So that'll lower that even more from 25 to 15. Meaning that you're almost going to be doing the same damage that you'd normally do. It's only really going to be 15 resist for the boss, which is actually so nice to play. It's still not 0, but like I'm okay with it being 15 rather than 75, because that means, you know, it still makes sense that a giant Murloc in shadow form takes less shadow damage. You know, it still makes sense that a giant Shadow Priest orc takes less shadow damage. You know, that makes sense. So I'm not super mad at it. I just didn't want it to be absolutely crippling our damage. So right now, these changes are going to make it so that you'll want to actually be maybe bringing a Shadow Priest. So on top of, you know, the actual buffs that we got to our damage, the jury is still out, honestly, on whether or not you'll want to take Void Plague and just keep wanding because it's more mana efficient, or if you'll want to take Twisted Faith and Mind Blast and Mind Flay. I think, honestly, Twisted Faith might be the way to go now instead of Void Plague, which kind of sucks because I like Void Plague a lot, but it's just going to tick so hard. You know, I'm going to test both out. I'm going to see which one does more damage, and we'll see what happens. But honestly, fantastic changes. I'm going to have a Shadow Priest guide coming out very soon. And yeah, stay tuned for that. We'll see you all next time.